Hi everyone, I just want to let you know that I'm taking a short break from making videos at the moment. But don't worry, I'll be back with a brand new video on May 1st. In the meantime, I wanted to give you something for the month of April. So I'm releasing one of my Patreon exclusive videos to my entire audience. This episode of The Great Quick Move, which you are about to see, is one of the earlier ones I released, but it is one of my favorites, so I hope you enjoy it. If you like this video and want to get access to the entire Great Quick Move series, consider joining my Patreon for as little as $3 a month. Thank you. There are a lot of obscure White Star liners, but perhaps there are none more obscure than those which were planned but never built. Many people are familiar with the planned Oceanic of 1925, but there are many more planned but unbuilt White Star liners. Let's take a look. Gigantic, 1892. Not long after the completion of RMS Majestic, rumors started brewing of a new White Star liner to be built by Harland & Wolff. Even back in the 1890s though, the press were not exactly a reliable source of technical information such as shipbuilding. One reporter for the New York Times wrote a piece which appeared in the September 17, 1892 paper that a ship to be named Gigantic was being planned for White Star. It would be 700 feet long, have a beam of 65 feet, and be powered by engines producing 4,500 horsepower, which, somehow, was supposed to propel the ship to a surface speed of 22 knots. Another article, this one in The Shipping World, describes a ship, also to be named Gigantic, which is planned to be no less than 800 feet in length. These press reports are likely describing preliminary plans for the ship which would eventually become the RMS Oceanic. Olympic, 1899. Oceanic would end up being a unique ship in a class of her own, but it was not always meant to be that way. Oceanic was tremendously popular among the traveling public, and thus commercially successful. Naturally, White Star had planned to build a sister for Oceanic, but circumstances got in the way when White Star was sold to the International Mercantile Marine Company. With the financial future of the company in question and 3 expensive ships already on order with Harland & Wolff, plans for Oceanic's sister, to have been named Olympic, were put on hold and never revisited. Gigantic, 1911. I debated whether or not to include this one. As many of you will know, the third ship of White Star's famed Olympic class was rumored to have originally been named Gigantic rather than the name we all know her by today, Britannic. Technically, the ship was built. However, depending on the timeline of events, the ship supposedly slated to be called Gigantic was modified significantly and renamed Britannic during construction. For this reason, it could be argued that Gigantic was not built as originally intended, and the ship's new name did not reflect the theme of grandiosity of the Olympic class up until that point. Before we continue, I should mention that it is generally considered unlikely that the White Star Line intended the third Olympic class ship to be named Gigantic. The evidence against this popular theory could be the topic of a future video, and I won't go into all of that here. However, I stand by my assertion that Britannic was not built as initially intended, and was quite a different ship from her sisters. Admittedly, this point can be debated, and it is a nuanced topic. But this is only meant to be a fun video, so if you disagree, please don't go too hard on me in the comments. Alright, let's move on. Cyric, 1913. Details are light on this one. According to John P. Eaton and Charles A. Haas's book, Falling Star, the White Star Line was in talks with Harland & Wolff to build a replacement for the lost Titanic. It's not clear what the ship, to be named Cyric, would have looked like, but there is evidence that it would have been larger than Titanic by a considerable margin. It would of course make sense for the replacement to be at least as large, and of equal speed to Titanic, as to create a balance between the new ship and the surviving Olympic and the anticipated Britannic. Cyric was never built, and her yard number was reassigned to what would become the Belgic and eventually the Belgian Land, once sold to the Red Star Line after World War I. Belgian Land, it should be noted, was considerably smaller than any of the Olympic-class ships, at approximately 28,000 gross registered tons, which suggests that either the Cyric was planned to be smaller than Titanic, or that construction had never progressed very far before the project was cancelled. Germanic, 1914. There are White Star Line records from 1913 listing a planned ship of 33,600 gross registered tons to be named Germanic. But before construction could begin, World War I halted that project. And once the war was over, the planned Germanic was redesigned, altering her size to 40,000 gross register tons, in an attempt to replace the 48,000 gross register ton Britannic, which was lost during the war. At that point, the planned ship was renamed Homeric, and her keel was laid down in June 1919. But in 1921, White Star acquired North German Lloyd's ship, Columbus, which was herself renamed Homeric. Even though the newly acquired ship, a 35,000 gross register ton vessel, was considerably smaller than Britannic or the ship currently under construction, the new ship was cancelled. Partially constructed, the former Germanic was downsized to an 18,000 gross register ton design and eventually became the second Laurentic. Oceanic, 1925. Perhaps the most well-known and well-documented unbuilt White Star Line ship was the planned RMMV Oceanic. This new ship was intended to restore White Star to its former glory and allow it to compete in the league of upcoming superliners such as Queen Mary and Bremen. Oceanic was to be over 1,000 feet long and 60,000 gross register tons. And on June 18, 1928, her keel was laid down at Harland & Wolff. After the initial burst of enthusiasm and anticipation from the public and the press, construction proceeded slowly and intermittently. Eventually, construction was stopped altogether. White Star had a convenient face-saving excuse for this, though. The company told the public that it was exploring the possibility of using diesel engines to power the ship. While it was true the Oceanic was meant to be a diesel-powered motor ship, the true cause of the delay in construction was financial, not technical. White Star's new parent company, the Royal Mail Group, was bordering on financial ruin, and there was simply not enough money to continue construction. The keel of the ship was coated in protective oil with the hope that construction would resume, but it never did. Instead, the company absorbed the financial loss of £150,000 and dismantled the keel. The materials would go on to become two smaller motor ships of approximately 26,000 and 28,000 gross register tons. These ships, Britannic and Georgic, would be the last ships bearing the White Star Line livery.